this video, we will log in using email via Magic Links, SMS authentication, and Google authentication using a service called Stytch. So Stytch is a software as a service that can help us authenticate using different ways, like the ones that I mentioned, and also more authentication types. So let's get started. The first step is to log in via your email and go to the Stytch dashboard. So here we have some instructions to log in using Magic Links here, and we can see also some examples using React, Express.js, Golang, Python, etc. etc. So in this example we will use nextjs, but I won't use this example. I will create the project from scratch. So I will open my terminal and run the command npx create next app, and I will call it passwordless authentication. So let's wait till it's completed. So the project is created and I will open it with my IDE. To run this project, open the terminal and run npm run dev. So this will run our project on port 3000, and if we go to that URL, we will go to this page. So this is the first page of Next.js. I'll make some changes there, so we don't need all this HTML here. I will remove everything and instead add here an h2 hello for the moment, and it will look like this. Now let's add also some styles. So go to getbootstrap.com, and here let's copy this installation command here and open the terminal, and I will install Bootstrap here. So it is installed, and now to include Bootstrap in this app, go to _app.js. Here we import all the global styles, which I'll keep them here for the moment, but I will add also this import. So import bootstrap this CSS, bootstrap CSS, and if I save and I check the app, you can see that the font is different. Now let's add more styles to it. So let's go to examples here, and I'll select the headers here. So I will select this dark header. I will inspect, and I will copy the code directly from the elements here. I will copy it and I will paste it here in the app.js. I will paste it here because this header will be added for all the pages, and the app.js file is executed for all of them. So before the component, I'll paste the HTML that I just copied, and here I will remove this anchor link, this form, and these last divs here. So I'll keep only the unordered list here. And for the menu items, I will remove every menu item except features, because it has the styles that I want. And I will rename features to home. And if I save this, we go here, we can see that we added the dark menu on top. Let's make some changes for the text also. I will close Bootstrap because we don't need it anymore. So let's go to index.js, and for the h2, I will remove the divs actually because we don't need them. I will keep just h2, and I will add class name of margin top 4 and text center. And for the actual text, I will put you are not authenticated, and it will show like this. So now it looks better. Now I will add another page so we can log in via magic links. So I will create a JavaScript file. I will call it email.js. And in this JavaScript file, I will create the component email, and I will export default email here. And here, for the moment, let's return h2 email. And if we go to the email page, we will see this. Now let's add it also in the menu. So in the menu, I will duplicate this, and this will be email here. So we will see it in the menu, but right now they are not clickable. So we need to import. Let's add an import here. So I will import the styles from the top, and here I will import link from next link. It needs to be with a capital L here. And here I will wrap this anchor link. I will remove this href here, and I will wrap this with the link. And I will add the href here. So the first one is in the main page, and let's add another link for the email page. So I will close it here. And the href here is to the email page, and that should be it. So now when I click home, I will see you are not authenticated. When I go to the email, we go to the email page. And now let's replace this h2 with a form. I will paste directly the HTML, and it will look like this. So this is just a simple form with a text here, please sign in, with an input and a submit button. So it doesn't look good right now because we need to add some styles. So I'll go to the styles folder. I'll remove home module.css because we don't need it. And in the global CSS, I'll remove everything here and add these styles. So this is for the form. I will add a max width, and this will make the form look better. So this is the form that we are trying to submit right now. We need just the email. So let's go back. Now to submit this form, we need also an API. So before we create the API, I will add the function to submit this form. So I'll create a function submit. And when we submit here, on submit, we will call a submit function. And now in the submit function, I'll add an event here, which we will call event.preventDefault. This is important because when we submit the form, it will refresh the page. And now when we add event.preventDefault, it won't refresh the page. When I submit now, it won't refresh the page. And now we need the email that we got from this input. And there are multiple ways to get that value. But I will use this way because we can reuse this way for all the other forms that we will create in this app. So I'll get a variable form here, which is equal to new form data, and I'll pass inside event.target. Then I'll get the inputs, which is equal to object from entries, and inside I'll pass form entries. So the entries here are all the inputs, and in our case we will get the email, and these inputs will be converted to a JSON object like this. So email like the value that we put here. So this is how we want it, and now the only thing left is to send a request. So I will make this async here. So we will send an asynchronous request. So I'll await here, fetch, and we will call an endpoint API/email. this will be a post request, so we will add here method post. We need to add the headers, which is content type application JSON, and in the body I will add JSON stringify inputs. So we need to convert this object to a string and to send it via this request. So we are finished with this email component, and now we need to create an API for that request. So we have hello.js here, which I will remove it, and I will create an email.js file. Inside here I will export a default asynchronous function, which is called handler. It is important to name it like this because Next.js needs this name to handle API requests. Inside this function we need a request and a response. And now we need to send a request to the Stytch servers to authenticate our users via magic links. For that we need to install a package, so let's install a package npm install Stytch. And we need to create now a directory. I'll call it lib, and inside I will create a file. I'll call it client. So here first we need to import all as Stytch from Stytch, and we need to export this constant client, which is equal to new Stytch client. Inside we need an object that contains a project ID, a secret, and an environment value. So the environment values are Stytch, envs, and we have two values here, live and test. So we will use the test environment, and for the other two values we will go to our Stytch dashboard, go to API keys, and we have here a project ID which I will copy. I'll paste it here, and a secret which I will also copy and paste it here. Don't use my credentials because I will change them after this video. And that should be it. So we added the client, and now let's use it to our email here. So first we need to import that client from our library client here, and then we will get a response. Actually we don't need at all a response, so I will just await here client magic links email login or create, and we need some information. The first one is the email, which we will get it from the request, so we will pass request.body.email. So we need to send the email. We need also a login magic link URL and a sign up magic link URL. So I will use the same value for both of these. So I will put here HTTP localhost port 3000/API/authenticate. I'll copy this and I will paste it here. And that should be it. In the end, I will return, I don't need a return, so respond, send, message, success. So what did we do here? So we will try to log in via magic links. So we need the email of the user, so we will send an email there. And then we need the redirect URL, which is this one. So after the user gets the email, they will redirect to this link. For this redirect link, I will copy this. We need to add them to our dashboard, go to redirect URLs, and let's create a redirect URL here. So I will paste the redirect URL, so it is localhost port 3000/API/authenticate, and we need to select the type. So I can select login and sign up, but I will select all of them, even though we don't need the invite. So I'll confirm here, and as we can see, we added 3 links. Now we are ready to log in via Magic Links. The only problem that is left is to create this endpoint. So for that, I will create a new JavaScript file here, authenticate, because this URL will point to API/authenticate. Here we need to create the same function, so export default async function handler, which contain a request and a response, and this function now will get a token. So I'll create a variable token here, which is equal to request.query. So we will go to this URL, but it will have a question mark token, some value there. So Stytch will redirect to this URL with a token in the query string. We need to get that value. We need also to import the client again here. And I'll wrap it with a try catch here. In case we have an error, I'll get the error string, which is equal, so this is const here, which is equal to JSON stringify the error, and then I'll return response status 400 with the JSON, the error string, so like this. So this is the case when we get an error. If we don't get an error, so first we will get a response here, which is equal to await client magic links again, authenticate, and I'll pass here the token, and that should be it. So we need to add also some options after this, but for the moment I will just console log the response, and let's return a response redirect to the main page. Let's try this. So we will get an email first, then we will redirect to this endpoint, and let's try it now. So let's go to localhost port 3000/email. Let's generate also a random email. I'll go to this page generator.email. I'll get this email, I'll copy this, paste it here, and I'll submit. So we should get an email right now. Indeed, we got an email. So when we click to this link, we will redirect to this other authenticate endpoint. So let's continue there. And we successfully redirected to our main page. As we can see, we are still not authenticated because we need to add more things to this function. But if we check here, because we used console log, this is the actual response. So we will get the method ID, request ID, etc., etc. And this is the response. What we need here is a session token. So as you can see now, the value is empty string, but we need some kind of value here. And to add that value, we need to add another option here, which is session duration in minutes. I'll put 15 here. So the session will last for 15 minutes. And then we will get a session token value in the response, and we want to store that response in our cookies. So for this we need to install also another package, npm install cookies, and I will import here cookies from cookies. Here on top I'll create a variable cookies, which is equal to new cookies with the parameter request and the response. And after we get the response will contain a session token. So this is what we want right now, and we will store it in the cookie. So I'll set the session token. The value will be session token, and we need some options. The first one is HTTP only to true. So this is actually important because if we add this cookie will be accessed only via the API and not via the components. This will increase the security of our app. And then we need the max age, which is 1000 times 60 times 30. So this is in short 30 minutes. So why did I add here 30 minutes when this is 15 minutes? It doesn't really matter, so we can check more. So this won't be deleted, but if 15 minutes pass, we will still have the cookie, but the session won't be valid. So it is the same. And that should be it. So now what is left is to get that session cookie. So I'll close this page. I'll inspect here to the application, and as you can see, we don't have any cookies for the moment. I'll submit again here, and we will get another email. So we got another email here. I'll click login. We will go here, and now I'll inspect application, and indeed we got a session token. So this has a value here. As you can see, it is also HTTP only, which means that we cannot access this in the front end. So we got the session token. Now we want to get the ID of this authenticated user from this token. The users are stored. If we go to our dashboard and go to the user management, we can see all the users that are tried to log in this account. And as you can see, this is the email that I just created, and we got a user ID here. So I want to display this user ID. And for that, I'll go to our index.js, and here we will show the user ID. And to show the user ID, we need to get the cookie value. But as I said, if it is HTTP only, it means that we can access it only in the backend. But we are using Next.js, so we have a way for that. And that way is, I'll export a constant here, get server side props. And this will be an async function. And this function can be used if we want to get data directly from the APIs. We can create a value here, or we can create a simple function like this. Inside this function, we can get that cookie. So let's try to get it. First, I will import here cookies from cookies. This function here contains a request and a response, which I will get it here. Cookies is equal to new cookies with the request and the response, and the session token will be equal to cookies get the session token. If it's not set, we will return null. And let's console log for the moment this session token. And that should be it. So if we refresh, we need to add actually a return here. So I'll create a variable props is equal to user as null. So in the end, we will return a user object here, and I will return the props like this. And that should be it. So if I refresh, we don't see anything here, but I want to see a console log, which is this value. So we are actually got the session token here. And now let's use it. Let's import also the client. And to get the user, so I'll create a variable here, user is equal to null. And I will set it here in the props. Then I'll add a try catch here, because it may happen that we will get an error. And now let's send a request to Stytch. So we will get a response is equal to await client sessions this time, authenticate, and I'll pass the session token that we got here. So this value, and we will get a response for it, and that response will contain the user. So the user will be equal to response.user, like this. And that should be it. So for the moment, let's console log the user here, and let's see if we get a value. Actually, we won't see anything here, but we got an error actually. What is the problem? We actually got a response here. So we have the user ID. We actually got a user, but the user created that. So we have a problem with the created at, but we need only the user ID. So there is no need for the other values. So I'll do it like this. User ID here, I will rename this, and I will create a props with the user ID, and I will get directly the user ID. Now, if I check it on the browser, let's refresh. And let's see the console log here. I guess I removed the console log actually. So we should get a user right now, and we should display it here on top. So let's do it. So first I will create a variable here, user, and set user, which is equal to use state. And the value inside the state will be, I will add the props here. It will be props.user. User ID, sorry. Like this. So when we set this props here, it will be added in the props in this component. And I will use a use state because we will change the user dynamically. I will show you when. So if the user is set, so I will add it like this, user question mark, I will display a message. Then if it's not set, I will display you are not authenticated, like this. If the user is set, then I'll display the message you are logged in with the ID user, like this. If I do this, I will refresh here, and I should get the ID, maybe the session expired, so I'll try to log in again. I'll get a new email right now. Let me refresh. I got the email. I'll log in again, and now the message is you're logged in with this ID of the user. So we successfully logged in right now. Let's add now a logout button so we can log out with this user. And for the logout button, I'll display it here. So if the user is set, I'll do the same. I will display a form here, and I will close it. So if the user is set, this form will have a class name of form, and it will have just a button here, logout, and the class name here will be button large, button primary, like this. And this will look like this. So now when I click logout, I want to be logged out. For this, we need to create a submit function. And when we submit here on submit, we will call this submit function. Let's add event here. So event.prevent default here. And now we need to send an API request to logout. And for this, we need to create a new JavaScript file here, logout. And let's export default function handler, not like this. That will have a request and a response. And let's add the cookies here, because we will import. Let's import the cookies here. We will use the cookies, and I will create the variable cookies, which is equal to new cookies with the request and the response. And we will simply delete that session token cookie that we set here. So just like we said, I'll copy this code, I'll paste it here, and now the value will be empty. And it can be HTTP only, but now the max age is 0. So we will delete this cookie, and in the end we will return response. We don't need a response here, so I will just call response send message success, and that should be it. So this is the logout endpoint, and now in our index.js we will call fetch. Actually, I will copy it from our email here, so it is the same. I'll paste it here. Maybe we need here a sync, and this is API/logout. Method is post, and we don't have a body, so we will send this request like this. And when we finish, when we successfully log out, we will set the user to null here. That's why I used the state here. So when we log out, we will reset the user value. And if we do it like this, when I try now to log out, it says you are not authenticated. And if I refresh, we should not get again that message, because we removed the cookie. If we inspect, check the cookies, we don't have any. So we successfully logged in via email, via magic links. Now let's try another authentication. For that, I will create another page. So I will call it SMS. Let's create a constant SMS here, which is a React component. And I will export default here SMS. So we created this page, and for the content, I'll copy the code from the email, and I'll paste it here. Everything should be almost the same, but we need to make some changes. So the message here is please insert your phone number, and this will be type it will be type text. The name will be phone_number, phone number, and this is phone number. And when we submit, we will send a request to API/SMS, and we don't need to change anything else. Let's add it also to the menu. So I'll copy this, paste it here, and this is linked to SMS here, and this is SMS. So as we can see, we have a new menu item here that we need to insert our phone number, and here is our phone number. Now let's add an endpoint for that phone number. So I will add here SMS, and let's export default async function handler. With a request and a response. So we added this function here. Let's get the import for the client, and now we will get a response here. So const response is equal to await client OTPs SMS, and we will call login or create again. So this is kind of the same, but the difference here, this is OTPs SMS, and when we try it with email is magic links email. And as a parameter, we need just our phone number from the request body phone number, and that should be it. So the request is very simple, but we need to return something. So response send, and that value that we want to send is response. So this response will have a phone ID. We need this value because after we get the message in our phones, we need to use that code along with this phone ID to get the authenticated user. So I'll deconstruct this, I'll get the phone ID, and I will return it here. So phone ID. And let's also log it. So phone ID here. And that should be it. Let's go also to the sms.js here. When we send this request, we will get a response here. So response is equal to this. We'll get the content, which is equal to await response.json. And I'll console log the content here. So let's try to put my phone number. I will close this windows here, and I will put my actual phone number. So I put my actual phone number here, and I open the console to check what we are getting from the server. So let's submit, and we get a phone ID here, as we can see. The same will happen also in the backend, because I added here a console log for the phone ID. So we need this phone ID, and for that we need to create another page now, which is Sms Verify. So after we submit this form, we will redirect to the Sms Verify, so we will get a code in our phones, and in that page we will put the code in our phones and this value that we got, so that I console log here. To go to that page with this phone ID, we need to get first the router here. So router is equal to use router from next. So don't forget to import use router. And after we get the content, which contains the phone ID here, as we saw in the console log here, which was refreshed right now, we got the phone ID, and now we want the router to push. This needs an await here, and I will pass an object here, and the path name will be SMS Verify. So we will go to this page, and we need also the query, which contains the phone ID. So that should be it. We will go to this page with this phone ID that we get from the response. And now what is left is to go to the SMS Verify and to create now the component SMS Verify. Let's export default SMS Verify now. And this will be similar. I'll copy again the code from the login here. And I will paste it to the SMS Verify. And here I will write, please insert your code. So we will get a code from our phone. I will change this type here to text. So I'll remove this. This is code, and this is code. And this is code here. So we get the code value, and now we need to send a submit request. We will send a post request to SMS Verify. So we need to create a new API here, and that should be it. This will send the code, but we need also the phone ID that we send in the query. So for that we need again the router, which I will add it here also. Don't forget to import it here on top. And to get the phone ID, we'll get it directly from the router.query, like this. So in the query we will get the phone ID. I'll deconstruct it directly. I will get it here, and now the inputs that we get, which is only the code, I will add the input values here, all of the input values, and I will attach the phone ID. So this is the request that we need to send now. We are finished with this component, and now let's create the SMS Verify. And here we need to authenticate our user again. So for that, I will copy this code. I will go to SMS Verify and I will paste it here. It will be different though, so we don't need the token here. We need to send the request to OTPs here, authenticate, and the data that we will pass are this. So we need a code, which we will get from request.body.code. We need the phone ID now, which we need to pass it with the method ID, which is request.body.phone ID, like this. And we will get a session token, which we will set it in the cookies, which is correct. And we will not redirect this time, so I will just call return a response with the message. So send here message success. So that should be it. So the request is different. We need to authenticate via the phone number now. We need the code in our phone, we need our phone ID, the session time, and we need to set that session. And we will return a message success, so we need to redirect here actually, which we need to use the router again. So now we will await router to push to the main page like this. And that should be it. And now let's try to log in with our phone. I will put my actual phone here, I will submit, and now I redirected to the SMS Verify page and I got a message in my phone. So now I will insert the code that I got in my phone, which is 646418. And if I submit now, I should redirect to the home page here, and I can expect the authenticated user. Let's submit, and indeed I got another authenticated user, and this time we logged in via our phone number via SMS. So it is working fine, and if I refresh, we can still get the authenticated user. So I'll log out again, and now let's try an authentication type using our Google account. Let's create a new page for it. So I will create here the page Google Auth. Let's create a component, so Google Auth, and let's export default Google Auth here, and let's add it also to the app.js. I'll copy this, paste it here, and this is Google Auth, Google here. So we added a new URL here which contains nothing, and now go to our dashboard here and click OAuth. So here we have a bunch of OAuth connections that we can make with Stytch. I will select Google, and I will connect with the test environment. For the moment I already connected with the test environment, and I will connect again with it, but the steps are the same. So the first step is to go to cloud.google.com, and here click the console, and I'm in Google Cloud now. So everything is free here. As you can see, my trial is over, but I can use the API credentials. So I need to write here in the search credentials. I will go to this page, and where we need to go is this API credentials here. So I already created the Google credentials here, but I will remove this, and I will create a new OAuth client ID here. So let's create one. I will select here web application. I'll call this Google Auth, and we need to add JavaScript origins and authorize redirect URIs. For this authorize redirect URIs, I will copy this value and I'll put it here. So this is the authorized redirect URI for Stytch. And now for the authorized JavaScript origins, we need to put the localhost with the port 3000, but we need to put also localhost itself like this. So these two are required, and that should be it. So now I can create these credentials, and we are finished now. So we have our client ID and our client secret. Now if we scroll here, we need to add our client ID and secret. So I will edit, and here I will put the client ID, which I will copy here. I'll paste it here, and for our client secret I'll copy this value and I'll paste it here, and that should be it. I'll confirm, and the values are updated. So now we can use the Google Authentication in Stytch. And for that, let's go to our app here. And to create a nice view here, we need to install another package. I will install npm install Stytch React. And this has some pre-built components that can help us create a nice view for the Google Authentication. And it is installed, and now what is left is to import it. So I will import from Stytch React here. I will import some components. So the first one is Stytch itself, then SDK product types and OAuth provider types. So how will we use them? First, I will return here Stytch as a component like this, and this needs a public token. This public token, we will go to our dashboard, go to API keys. So we added the project ID and the secret, but we have also a public token here, which I will copy and I'll paste it here. So this value, it is required. The next value that is required, I'll create a variable here on top. I'll call it login or sign up view. It is an object for the moment. I will add the values later. And login or sign up view, I will set it to this value that we created here. So what will this object contain? So we need first to add products here, and this accepts an array, and inside I'll put SDK product types. I'll select OAuth because this is OAuth authentication, and we will add here OAuth options. We need to add the providers, which accepts an array, and this will be an object inside which contains the type, which is OAuth provider types. We have a bunch of options here, but we want Google. We can log in via also Facebook or all the other types, but let's log in with Google, and it is the same with every one of them. I'll add here one tap to true and the position embedded. So these are options which are required from Stytch, and we need to add also two options, which is login redirect URL and sign up redirect URL. Both of these values should be the same, and I'll copy this value. Where was that value? When we log in via email, I'll go here and I'll paste it here, but I'll make a change because this will not be the same function because we need a small change. So I'll call it underscore OAuth here. So I'll copy this, paste it here. So we need one more redirect URL. So let's go to our Stytch dashboard and go to redirect URLs here, and let's create more redirect URLs. I'll paste it here, select all of them and confirm. And that should be it. So we added this. We don't need anything else, and we are ready to log in. But we expect this API here, so we need to create a new JavaScript file, authenticate OAuth. And I'll copy the code from authenticate here and I'll paste it here. Everything will be almost the same. The difference is actually very small. Instead of magic links here, I'll call OAuth here. And that should be it. We don't need to change anything else. The authentication is still the same. We just changed this value. And with this, let's try to authenticate via our Google account. As we can see, so the view has changed and we can select now our emails that we can log in, but they should be on the center of the screen, so I need to make a change here. I will wrap this with another div. And I will add a class name here of form. So this can be in the center of the screen. And now it will look like this. So now it is better. Now I will select my email, and if I redirect to the home page, it means that everything is successful, and it is. So I am logged in with this ID. So we learned to authenticate using 3 different ways, and all ways without using any passwords. So we learned how to log in via magic links, SMS, and Google authentication. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.